As the dust settles on the New York Giants' impressive Week 1 preseason win, we take a look back at some emerging developments and how we see them potentially playing out. Locked on Giants starts right now.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for New York Giants on SI, which is where you can find all of my written work. And as always, we welcome on in our Blue Crew community members, our everydayers, our newcomers, and everybody in between. And we thank you for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. And if you're making us your first podcast listen of the day, we thank you for that as well. Today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code Locked On NFL to get $20 off your first purchase. All right, New York Giant fans, we're still kind of feeling good about the Giants and their Week 1 win over the Buffalo Bills in the preseason. And having had an opportunity to kind of let things settle in and digest a little bit, I thought we would take a look at some of the developments from that game and how that might affect some of the roster moves and decisions moving forward. So we're going to kick things off with what I think was a very positive development in that game, and that was the emergence, if you will, of Dante Turbo Miller at running back. So we'll talk about what he brings, what his, did he help his roster spot, and how can they, how can they solve the logjam that exists at the running back position right now? So I have some ideas on that. Then in segment 2, there are still some unanswered questions that I think we need to talk about, including a couple of concerns that I have. Now, I don't mean to put cold water on the Giants win and whatnot, but there's still some questions that do need to be answered. We'll talk about those, what they are, and maybe what the solutions are. And then last but not least, the Giants will be having joint practices with the Jets this week, as I've been telling you all along. So just a little preview on that, what to expect, what Brian Daboll had to say when he talked to the media via video call on Sunday. So we'll just kind of talk about all that as we get you ready for a new week of New York Giants football. So again, welcome on in to everybody. All right, let's turbocharge this sucker, shall we? Dante Turbo Miller. Now, this is a guy I've always liked. I have always liked Dante Turbo Miller. You cannot teach speed, and Dante Miller has it in droves, all right? He was actually named the Giants Offensive Player of the Game by the coaching staff. That revealed by Brian Daboll. Despite the fact that he only ran 10 times for 22 yards. But where Dante Miller was really good for the Giants on the offensive side of the ball was out of the backfield, particularly on screens, where he had pass receptions for 18, 16, and 13 yards. He was 7 of 7 in the receiving yardage department. Now, why is that significant? Well, Cam Scatterboo is currently, as I understand it, dealing with a hamstring injury. And who knows when he's going to be ready, all right? Daboll, as is his practice, did not give us anything as far as injury updates, and he won't until he has to, which is when the injury reports start having to come out. But hamstrings, as you all know, can take a long time to recover from. If you rush back, you're going to have a setback and you're going to go back to square one. So I got to thinking, okay, would it maybe be possible that the Giants, if Dante Miller can excel on special teams, because really that's where he has to distinguish himself. On offense, I think, he's done a pretty good job, but truth be told, he's got Devin Singletary ahead of him, and I'll address Devin Singletary in a moment. But Dante Miller has to stand out on special teams, and that's something also that Brian Daboll said. All right, now, in the Week 1 preseason game against the Bills, Dante Miller had 9 snaps on specials he had 9 snaps on specials on kickoff coverage and punt return. He had 1 tackle. According to Pro Football Focus, he was the fourth best graded special teamer on the Giants with a 72.3 overall grade. So, you know, there is potential there for Dante Miller. But as I mentioned, right now the situation's kind of muddied a little bit. Okay. So that being said, the Giants, what do they do now? Well, not knowing how or where Cam Scatterbo is in his recovery, plus the fact that he's missing quite a bit of time, maybe Cam Scatterbo will start the regular season on IR and be designated to return. I can certainly see a situation where that might happen. That way, that would allow for the Giants to keep Tyrone Tracy Jr., Dante Miller, and Devin Singletary. But if Scatterbo is ready to go and he doesn't have to go on IR, you would think, okay, there's no room now for Dante Miller. Well, here's how I would propose they make room for Dante Miller without having to carry 4 running backs. Trade Devin Singletary. Now, some of you are like, well, who would possibly take Devin Singletary and what could they get for him? Well, I've got an answer for you, folks. Houston. Houston currently has injury issues at their running back spot. All right. Joe Mixon, their lead running back, has a foot and ankle injury. Going to miss some time. If the Giants can somehow trade Singletary, who, by the way, has a $3 million guaranteed of his salary this year. If the Giants could somehow trade him to the Houston Texans, whose other running backs are Jawad Jordan and Nick Chubb, okay, get a day 3 pick if you have to. It's better than nothing, all right? So if they trade Singletary, they will save $5 million on their salary cap this year. And they will have to eat 1.25 in dead money this year, 1.25 next year. That's not a lot at all. Okay, so that being said, if Scatterbo is going to be good to go, and again, we don't know if he will be or won't be, if he's good to go, consider trading Singletary. I know the Giants like Singletary. They have a soft spot for him. And Singletary, remember, he actually spent 1 season in Houston. So they kind of know what they would be getting if they were to acquire him. And let's face it, he would probably be, high up on their depth chart if they were to acquire him. And who knows, maybe even the Giants get back, I don't know, a draft pick or something that they traded away when they had to move up for Jackson Dart. Probably not because of the value of the draft picks. But the point being is the Giants gave the Texans an extra draft pick for next year. Well, maybe now they get one back, even if it's like a day 3 pick. So overall, folks, I'd like to see Dante Miller make it. I mean, it's still not decided. Like I said, you can't teach speed. He's got speed, but he's got to show it on special teams. That's going to be his ticket. And oh, by the way, Devin Singletary doesn't play on special teams. So all the more reason, if you're the Giants, to consider seeing if you can't move Devin Singletary in a trade. Again, even if it's for a day 3 pick. I know some of you scoff at that, and I'm like, any pick is better than none, considering that the Giants do not have any comp picks for next year. So that's how I think it might play out for the Giants with the running back situation. Again, it's only 1 week into the preseason. There's still a lot of time left to go. And of course, we'll have to see if injuries pop up, if heaven forbid Tyrone Tracy gets injured, that's going to change the whole complexion of this scenario. But I'd like to see the Giants find a way to keep Turbo Miller because I think he's a good young player and I'd hate to see him go elsewhere and just, light it up. All right, coming up next, the Giants, for as good as they were in the opening game for the preseason, there's still some questions that kind of popped up that I want to talk about. That'll be right after this. This episode is presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, I'm playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first timer or a veteran making your millionth league. Whether you're all in on something new or you like sticking to head-to-head leagues or jumping into public leagues, Yahoo has you covered. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout the month of August. To kick it off, they just dropped the Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you could still play in the head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. So stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And again, this week, the Giants have joint practices with the Jets. Tuesday, it's at Florham Park, the Jets headquarters. Wednesday in East Rutherford, the Giants headquarters. And then, of course, the Giants and Jets play on Saturday night at MetLife Stadium. The Giants will be the home team, and I will be at both the joint practices as well as the preseason games. So you know the drill. If there is a practice, I will get you a report. Now, Thursday, there's also a practice. It's just the Giants having a cards practice. So really not a whole lot to talk about with that. That's more of a cards practice. But we'll have some other little surprises for you coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast, including I'm working on booking a guest for one of the shows. So we'll have that for you as the week goes on. All right, let's talk now about some of the unanswered questions that popped up for the Giants in the first preseason game. The first one that kind of comes to mind, and this is a hat tip, by the way, to Doug Analytics, the ex-user Doug Analytics. Paulson Adebo and the cornerback deployment. Now, Paulson Adebo, throughout his career, has primarily played one side, I think the left side, okay, left cornerback. According to True Media stats, Paulson Adebo has played 2,389 snaps on the left side since 2021. Of those, 1,548 coverage snaps and 152 tackles, 38 pass breakups, 9 interceptions. On the right side, he's only had 137 snaps. Only 77 of those have been in coverage. He's only had 10 tackles, 2 pass breakups. Now, why do I bring that up? Because in the preseason opener, even though the starters didn't play a whole lot, Paulson Adebo was on the left side. So the question now becomes, Shane Bowen, are you going to have guys travel? Are you going to have your cornerbacks travel with the wide receiver one of the opponent? Because here's the problem. If Adebo is going to stay on one side, if you're the opponent, you line up your wide receiver one against Deontay Banks or Cordell Flott, whoever wins that battle, and you don't think twice about it. So we didn't really see it. Now, I don't know if that's because, Bowen is planning to do it and just doesn't want to show that he's going to do it, or maybe he's not going to do it. And he has an answer. Maybe he's going to roll coverage over to help whoever's on the other side. But that is a concern. Now, we won't have answers, obviously, till we get to week 1 of the season when we see how it's played. Right now, I believe Terry McLaurin of the Washington Commanders, I don't think he has a new contract yet. So who knows if he's even going to play that week 1 game. I think he'll get it done, to be honest with you. I'd be surprised if he doesn't. But yeah, that is a concern that I have regarding the defense. How are they going to play those cornerbacks? Are they going to play sides, or are they going to have guys travel, have the number 1 cornerback travel with the number 1 receiver? Big, big question mark. Okay, another question that I have is the inside linebacker depth behind Micah McFadden and Bobby Okereke, the starters. Week 1 of the preseason, I'm going to be honest with you folks, I wasn't exactly bowled over by the depth behind McFadden and Okereke. You have Deontay Johnson. You have Darius Muaso, obviously. Uh, something was missing from their games. I thought the coverage was a problem. There was a little bit of a lack of physicality there. So remember, that's the one position, inside linebacker, that the Giants really didn't do anything about in the offseason. There's only so many positions you can address, so many needs you can address in the offseason. You're never going to get them all. And that's one that I have concerns, because if there is an injury, heaven forbid Bobby Okereke's back acts up again, what do? They're going to, they run the risk of a drop off based on, what they have right now. So one possibility, I don't know if they would do this, but maybe they have Dane Belton, who is a safety by trade. Maybe they turn him into a hybrid inside linebacker safety to solve the coverage issue. Do they maybe put, Abdul Carter back there in coverage? I think that would be a waste of his talent, to be honest with you. But yeah, that is a concern that I have because right now, like I said, I can't honestly say that the Giants are blowing me away with the backup depth at inside linebacker. But still a couple more preseason games to go. Still some training camp left. We'll see. Maybe things will get better by the end of the month when the 53-man roster has to be assembled. And then finally, folks, the other thing that was a little bit of a downer for me in the win. And again, I don't mean to throw cold water on this, but the Giants settled for way too many field goals. And, I'd like to see them have to rely less on Graham Gano and just get the ball into the end zone, because you've heard me say it on Twitter. You've heard me say it here. Field goals ain't going to cut it in this league. It's just not. Got to get into the end zone. And although Graham Gano looked good, kudos to him. He hit all 3 of his field goal attempts on Saturday, all 3 of which were 50-plus yards. You don't want to have to rely on field goals. I mean, this is an offense. Think about it. The offensive line, if it plays as well as it did against the Bills, and by the way, I'm not expecting the offensive line to go, to pitch shutouts every single week. It would be nice if they did, but I don't expect it. But if they keep the sacks low and the pressures low like they did, against the Bills, that's going to give the quarterbacks time to operate. That's going to give, the receivers time to get down the field, make some of those chunk plays. They had better quarterback play. So there should be really no reason for them to continuously settle for field goals. So again, this is something to keep an eye on. It was a mild concern of mine in the preseason opener, but things can change. Remember, there's no game planning. There's just, you're looking at individual matchups, individual performances. So I'm not panicked yet about it, but it is something to keep an eye on, because if this offense can't score at least 23, 24 points per game, something is wrong. And, I don't know what to tell you, but something's wrong if it doesn't. And just an FYI, by the way, Brian Dable spoke about Mike Kafka being on the sidelines, the offensive coordinator / assistant head coach, calling plays on the sideline. And Dable spoke and said that, the operation for the offense went very smoothly. I kind of got the impression that maybe that's how it's going to stay once we get into the regular season. Of course, Dable didn't come out and say it. Dable hasn't even admitted that Kafka's going to do the play calling. But look, we all know that's how it's going to go. All right. At this juncture, Kafka's been doing it every day since the spring. That's how it's going to go. And if Kafka's on the sideline again, he's going to be on the sideline for the regular season. I mean, they've had 3 years of him up in the booth. So, I mean, who are they trying to fool here? So anyway, all right, coming up next, the Giants and Jets have joint practices this week. We'll talk a little bit about that as far as expectations and so forth right after this. Hey, Giant fans, we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show that you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. That's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last minute deals. Ever wonder what your view will actually look like before you buy? The app shows you a panoramic seat view so that there are no surprises. And with Game Time, the price you see is the price you will pay. There are no hidden fees. Worried about what happens if your plans change? The Game Time guarantee has your back with a cancellation protection and a lot more. So go on, take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to Locked On Giants. I'm your host, Patricia Traina. And starting on Tuesday, the Giants and Jets joint practices. Now, there was no practice for the Giants on Monday. They had the day off. So Tuesday, it kicks off with practice at Florham Park. I believe the practice starts at 10 a.m. For the Jets practice, actually 10 a.m. for both practices. I don't know how the Jets are doing it as far as public admission. I don't know if it's limited to their season ticket holders or whatnot, but I know the Giants, I think, have open access to theirs. But anyway, let's talk about how that might run. Now, Brian Daboll, this kind of ties into whether or not Brian Daboll will continue to get the starters work in the preseason. And in the past, what he has done is he has sat the guys who have participated in joint practices thinking that, okay, you know what, they got quality work, it was physical, so why bother with, putting them in the preseason? I could see that being a possibility. I don't want to see that. I want to see the starters play in the preseason game against the Jets when the restrictions that are going to be put in place, such as no live tackling to the ground, no hitting the quarterback, obviously. I want to see the Giants get their starters, even if it's just, again, for a series or two, get them out there, continue to build them up. I think there is benefit to that. I've spoken about the benefit of that. But I think with this practice, given how, it's interesting. I believe Aaron Glenn, the head coach of the Jets, has actually been allowing live tackling. And really, that's the only way you're going to get better at it on defense. I mean, the Giants against the Bills, I believe they had something like 12 missed tackles. That's not something you want to see continue. You want to keep that missed tackle rate as close as possible, obviously, to zero, but preferably not in the double digits. You want it under the double digits. So I'm kind of curious to see if the Giants' practices with the Jets are going to be a little bit more physical than maybe what we have seen the Giants do so far in training camp. And again, I can understand why, Brian Daboll would want to keep the physicality out of it and have them just do thudding, because you don't want to tackle your own teammate and heaven forbid you end up hurting him and he can't play. So I do think that, there might be a little bit more physicality. At least that is my hope. So that's something certainly to keep an eye on. Now, for the Giants and Jet practice, I actually am going to have Brandon Olson, who writes for me over on New York Giants on SI and who is also a guest on occasion here on the Locked On Giants podcast. So he'll be over there with me. So this way we'll be able to watch both fields, because you have the Giants offense versus the Jet defense on one field, and then the Jets offense and the Giants defense on another. And it's hard to watch both. But some of the things I'm going to be looking for, again, is going to be, the coverage issues that the Giants had. I mean, they weren't horrible in the preseason opener, but I want to see how they do against, the Jets receivers. Tackling, like I said, hopefully that is part of it. Although I have a feeling that's not going to be part of it, but we'll see if that's how they do it. I also want to see, basically, last year the Jets dominated the Giants in the joint practice that they had at Florham Park. The Jets defensive secondary just smothered the Giants offense. So how much of a difference will it be for the Giants this year? I think Malik Neighbors will be available. I mean, they're managing his reps due to the toe issue that he has. I don't know just yet if Darius Slayton will be back. I don't know what his injury is. I don't know what Jalen Hyatt is dealing with. I don't know if his calf is acting up. So it'll be a good test, I think, for the receivers, even if they don't have everybody, available for the practice. So I want to see how they do against that Jets defense, because that defensive secondary that the Jets have, it's pretty good. And like I said, last year they smothered the Giants offense. It was no contest. The Jets won that practice. And by the way, they let everybody know that they won that practice. I remember standing there on the sideline and they were whooping it up, waving goodbye to the Giants and whatnot. It was all good fun, obviously, because of the rivalry between the two MetLife Stadium tenants. But so to recap, just, the physicality, the Giants passing game against the Jets defense, that Jet defense, very good. And then I just want to see a little bit more, if I could, from the running game. All right. The run defense. I didn't think the Giants run defense against the Bills was that great. There were at least 3 long runs of 10 plus yards. Again, I know Dexter Lawrence wasn't in there, but they got to get guys in there who can pick up the slack if Dexter isn't in there. I don't know that they necessarily have that, and I need to see that. And the Jets, they've got a good running game. So the Jets, the joint practices, a lot of golden opportunities here for the Giants to really polish some of the things that maybe need a little bit more polishing in their game. So that said, I'm looking forward to those joint practices. Florham Park is really pretty. So I'm looking forward to visiting the facility out there. And then, of course, I'm looking forward to getting back home, if you will, to East Rutherford for that joint practice. And then, like I said, we have the game on Saturday. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Giants. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. For your next listen, please consider checking out Locked On Bets. Betting experts Lee Sterling and Kevin Rodgers have daily MLB locks and can't miss football futures. Find Locked On Bets on YouTube or wherever you listen to your live podcasts. All right, Giant fans, that's going to do it for this edition. I will see you tomorrow. Have a good one.